Hi, folks. Hey. So, first of all, can you all hear me okay with this microphone? We wanted to make sure everybody can hear okay. Yep. Great, thank you. Thanks for the riffraffs in the back, okay? Well, thank you all for coming out. It's great to have this opportunity to get to meet folks and reconnect with folks. And what we're hoping to do this evening is I'll go through a few things just to try to give you some sense of where I'm coming from, what got me into this, other than temporary insanity. And then we'll have an open forum, which will be hopefully most of the time, where we just have conversation and see what is on people's minds and things like that. So we'll get to that. There is a table in the back that had a couple things. One was a little flyer that just has information that gives a little bit of guidance about the campaign focus and things like that. And there's also a sign-up sheet that, because communication is important to me, I want to be able to keep people informed as I learn about things or as I form opinions based on what I'm hearing and everything else. So I'll send out updates fairly regularly. So if you want to be in that email distribution list, you can add that too. If you don't feel comfortable putting your name on the list and all that, you can also go to the website and I'll show my email address up there so that you can just email me something. But so let's get into this. First of all, I guess just to give you an idea of who I am. So Sue over there taking care of the camera. So Sue and I met, thought about this the other day, over 50 years ago, introduced in 7th grade in the cafeteria. This year we'll be celebrating our 44th anniversary. And we have two daughters, one that lives in Portland, Oregon, and the other one that lives in Sydney, Australia. They both love to come visit here. They've visited here many times over the years, and they're real happy to be able to have this as the place now when they come to visit us, so that's really fun. And we actually, I think I've moved Sue 15 times, and the move here for me was my 20th move, because I moved a number of times before she and I met. And we lived all over the country, and then because of work and military and school and everything else, we also traveled all over the world. And yet, when it came time where we were finally making the choice of where do we want to move instead of where the military or career or something was telling me where to go, this is where we chose. And we chose that in part because we built up so many great memories here, and we thought it was a really special place. And not a perfect place, but a very special place. And when it really came to thinking about this decision to run, it was because we started to see things that we worried, is this going to be a place that 5 years, 10 years from now, we're going to regret that this is where we chose to come? And we didn't want that to be the case. We really want this to be our last move. So that's what kind of set us down this path. I think we've been coming up here for 20, 25 years. Sue's sister has lived here in town for longer than that, and so we would come visit. About 15 years ago, we bought a place that was kind of a vacation spot because we would come here at least once a year. And then coming up on 5 years ago, we made this our permanent residence, bought a different place because we needed flat land, which of course is so unusual to find here in this county, but we found it, and so we had a place to put up Sue's horse arena and things like that, so we're all settled in just down Lewiston Road. That picture might be familiar from driving down Lewiston Road, but if you have a sense, that's where we are. Or as I've come to know, even if we live here 40 or 50 years, it's the Gannon place. We realize it'll never be our place, it's the Gannon place. A little bit about me from a background standpoint. You heard about all the moves. There was a lot of corporate moves too. I was with companies, one that we grew from 2 small companies to a $20 billion conglomerate. And so we're growing really fast, traveling a lot, trying different things. And so there's lots of different titles there because I was moving around a lot, and we would buy companies and I would get involved with those. But in general, it was in travel and technology, or the combination of the two. And so that's what I really did for a long, long time. And then my last corporate job was Choice Hotels, which had a big office in the Phoenix area where we were, wanted to hire somebody to launch a new business for them. It was a travel technology startup, if you will. And so that's what I did for a couple of years, launched that business for them, and then they decided, instead of spinning it off, which is what had gotten me interested in it, they wanted to keep it in-house and have control over it, and that didn't seem all that fun. So that's about the time when we said, well, let's just go up and enjoy life in Lewiston. So that was going back about 5 years ago. Board experience. I have been on boards a number of different times in for-profit and nonprofit. I'm currently in it's either 11th or 12th year with an international nonprofit that's actually got its U.S. headquarters back in the Phoenix area. I've also had some certified board training because of being involved in corporate boards. So I have that kind of background and experience, but nothing in politics. It was never an interest of mine. It was never a goal of mine. And really, as I said, it really came on because of just feeling the need that if I didn't want to complain later, I better step up. So that's kind of how we got to here. Current job. So when we moved here, I thought I was retiring, but not so much. A couple of years ago, a recruiter found me somehow, LinkedIn or something, and they were looking for someone to help grow a small business. And that's ESI, or Evidence Solutions. It's actually a forensic evidence company, which was not anything I'd ever done, but I've done a lot of different companies, so that really didn't matter to me. It was they wanted somebody to grow this business. And it is based out of Tucson, but everyone in the company works from home. We're located in a dozen different states, and 2 years into it, I have never physically met one of the team members or the owner, but I run this company. It's just an unusual thing, and that's maybe kind of the nature of our world these days, but it's been interesting. And I, by design, only spend about 20 hours a week on that, because part of this is I had to think, well, do I really have time for this to do it right? So that's only about 20 hours a week. And then before I left Arizona, I was mentoring the founders of startups through Arizona State. They have 750 startups that participate in their entrepreneurial programs, and they match them up with people like me as mentors to help the founders figure out how do they get from their idea stage to being a business. And that only takes me 2 or 3 hours a week, so okay, that's manageable. I heard the call one day and joined some other people who are here in the room that joined the fire department. Another thing I never thought I would do, but I really saw what the needs were here and decided that I was, at least for now, still able-bodied, so I would give it a shot. And it's been very interesting, very rewarding, and right now a bunch of us are actually learning how to drive the big fire engines, because we now have a decent number of volunteers, but there's probably 2 people that can drive the fire engines, so we need more of that, so it's great. And then that leaves, if things go the right way in June, then I think I would still have time for the board position. And that's based on having talked to a couple of people who are on the board and their estimate of how much time they spend. And they do say pretty consistently, well, it sort of depends on how much you decide to get involved in special committees and how much you invest in the actual job itself. But that if you do a good job of understanding the issues, reading all the materials, engaging a little bit with your constituents so you know where they're coming from, and show up at the meetings probably about 20 or so hours a week. So I told Sue, well, I'm going back to the time when I was just working all the time, but if we're up for that, then let's give it a shot. So that's kind of where we are with that. I must have gone too far. Yeah, I did. Okay. So when I was thinking about the focus of the campaign, why do I really want to do this? I started to write down things that were important to me. And it ended up coming out into something that spells respect. And so I'll just quickly walk you through those. I don't want to belabor it, but at least give you the framework of what was important to me coming into this. Still important to me, but I'm also learning that there's other things I need to be maybe aware of that I didn't know, because first of all, I'm probably one of the newest people to the community in this room. Everybody's been here longer than us, it seems. And I probably spent 95% of my time working on our property and our house, not out exploring the county. So there's a lot that I have to learn. But residential property rights was a big one, and that's how I first got involved in, I would say, the political arena here, when there were people that were involved in discussions about opt-outs and the concerns about how commercial cannabis was being allowed in places that perhaps wasn't the best suited for that type of business in rural residential areas. And I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of problems that have taken place because of how things have been handled in that arena. And the problems are on both sides, because you have residents who've had their quality of life impacted, concerns about their life, their own personal livelihood, the investments they've made in their properties, and you have the farmers who, you know, I know we've all had some experience, or at least think we have some experience, of the people that haven't played by the rules, but there's a number of them that have done everything they were supposed to do by the rules as set out by the county, and 4 years later, it's illegal for them to grow. And so it's been bad on everybody involved. And so I think there is a way to protect residential property rights and also support economic development. Now, we'll talk about communication later, but one of the things that is very important to me is to get people's input and to see how people feel about these things, because again, we all bring our own perspective, but I want to know what the people I would represent feel. So I put a survey out online, and it's not statistically valid sampling or any of those kinds of things, so I can't extrapolate something from it, but I still thought it was relevant, and I thought I would share with you. So the first thing I asked to say, for a number of things, do you feel like the county's efforts have met your expectations, fallen below your expectations, or exceeded your expectations? So this is where I think it was around 50 or 60, 57 people responded to this. There were 60 total responses, not everybody answered every question. So of the 57 people, 68% said below my expectations, the county's efforts to really take care of residential property rights. So economic development is the next one, and this one, what's interesting is this is, as I recall, the worst of the ratings. So almost 95% of the people said below my expectations. And I think we all sense that, in that, you know, there's very few jobs, we're struggling with the revenues to run the county correctly. I think I pushed the button. And where we have tried to do things in economic development, cannabis being one of them, we've done it so poorly that it hasn't really generated revenues for the county, and it's caused all kinds of problems. So I think there's just a huge opportunity to find good ways to build the economy within our county, but do it in a more thoughtful, responsive way. And to give you some perspective here, the way that the county chose to handle the whole licensing process and everything else ended up resulting in a lawsuit that many of you are probably aware of, with a group called TAA, who was basically saying, we're not really following the law as it's supposed to be implemented. The county, there was first discussions, but eventually it was a lawsuit. The lawsuit was won by the TAA, which means the county lost that. So that's why we're here years later, where farmers trying to do the right thing still can't grow, residents still have properties that they're concerned where those grows were allowed in the first place, so nobody's happy, we have no revenues, we have lawsuits, and to put it in perspective, that one lawsuit, based on the recent court meetings, is going to cost the county somewhere north of $350,000 in legal fees for the loss. That doesn't count the legal fees for the attorneys that were supporting the county in what was a flawed argument, because in the end the court said no, actually the TAA is right. So we are in the deficit by all that money, and we've lost all this opportunity, and we probably lost a lot of people that would have been great farmers, citizens who have said, I'm going somewhere else. Those are the places where I could try this. So I just think there's a lot that we can do and do better in this area, but it's going to take a lot of effort. And then there are some things underway that are setting the stage for turning that around. We did get a grant, funds from the state. It's over $3 million. And I know I've heard some people say, well, yeah, and the $3 million, and they're spending it all to help the farmers. Why is that? Well, that's because that's exactly what the money was given for. It's basically, from a selfish standpoint, it's the state saying, we're going to give you this money to help these farmers get growing, because we, the state, will make a lot of money off of the state taxes. That's the reason why they made the money available. That's the reason it needs to be spent in that way. And I know people say, well, yeah, but we could use $3 million for a lot of other things. We have to find that money somewhere else. That's not what that's for. But that creates an opportunity for us to turn that around. And so we've hired consultants that are starting to work with the county and with the farmers to help get them down the right path, doing the right things in the right way, deal with some of the issues that we have come across with poor decisions that were made up front, but it'll take some work. Let's see. Well, economy, yeah, I already hit that one. So services, this is one, just basically saying, my sense from talking to people who've been there a lot longer than me and my own experience is that there's a strong feeling that the services could be much better. They used to be better in some ways. They maybe never were what they could have or should have been, but regardless, there's a need for improvement. And so that was one of the things that I really thought was important, and something I wanted to dig into and have done some. And you can see here, interesting, there's some people that actually, felt like it was meeting their expectations, but quite a few who didn't. And the one thing I really wanted to mention as I share this is that I want to caution us against making the staff that is here doing the work feel bad about these kinds of survey results or how we feel about the services. Because in my view, for the most part, it's not the staff, it's the staff. They're doing the jobs of 2 or 3 people because we aren't hiring enough people or keeping them. But we've had questionable decisions on leadership, lots of changes in direction on leadership, lack of funding, lack of coordination, and all of that, I think, has led to some problems with services. And I just don't want the message to be to the people that are showing up and doing the job that we just think they're terrible. We think that the outcome is not what we want. And I also wanted to say, from, again, meeting with people and trying to learn more about what's going on, as much as I think we should do better within the county, I also think we shouldn't rely just on the county. And this kind of speaks to, as individuals we can make a difference, as communities we can make a difference, as a county and so forth. And the example is, I don't know how familiar people are with things like this, but if you can, I don't know how much you can read these numbers, but that is a list of things that we have done in the Lewiston Community Services District for ourselves with money that was obtained through grant writing and a lot of coordination to improve Lewiston, and $25 million. And if we'd sat back waiting for the county to do all that, it would have never gotten done. So I as much as I want to make sure that we do what we can and should do within the county, I also want us to keep thinking broadly about other ways that we can get things done. And of course, I'm also having to reach out to other parts of the district and learn about what their needs and what they've been able to do about things like this as well. Planning. This one is one where the ratings were pretty bad too, 92%. And I think this goes everything. A lot of times people think of the general plan and they say, oh yeah, the general plan, it's way past due, it's very old, and we have problems with it, and that's true. But I think there's a lot of other planning that needs to be done a lot better and a lot more effectively. And I'll give you an example. When I was sitting observing a board meeting recently, they were calling all the departments in to make reports. And the person in charge of the waste management was brought in and started getting peppered with all these questions about when certain things were going to be fixed and so forth. And what was clear is there was no alignment on what the priorities were to get fixed. So which one do you want me to fix first? Do you want to get the e-waste going? Do you want to get recycling going? Do you want to get this going? Because while you want it all, you can't have it all at the same time. So I think we really need to focus on getting clarity about what the priorities are so that we can then work with people to get those done, and that does take more effective planning. And when it comes to the general plan, a lot of the efforts have been focused around hiring consultants and sitting in a room and coming up with a plan and then coming out to us and saying, what do you think? And I think it should really be us working together and feeding up what we think should happen with those plans. Engagement, I really believe this is important, and what I mean by engagement is we are actually collectively engaged in doing something about the issues that are in front of us. And like right now, we're not engaged, you're just having to listen to me, and I promise I'll be done soon. But then we'll be engaged in conversation about what we can do to move the county forward and what's important and how do people feel about those things. But I feel like there isn't much engagement, in part because I think people have sort of given up. They've lost trust, they've lost confidence that their efforts will mean anything. And so I think there's a long way to go to change that, but I do really think that us being engaged collectively is what's going to make the difference. That was one where actually somebody was saying that it was above their expectations, so maybe that's a group that has found a way to get engaged and work with others in the community. Communication. What I find is it's very hard to find the information that you want about what's going on. If you're interested in something that's to be on the board, maybe on Friday afternoon you'll be able to know that there's a document that you could review to be able to talk about it on Monday morning. And if you had it on the agenda at 9 a.m., you might find out that they moved it to 3 p.m. or the other way around. So the communication just doesn't seem very strong. And I think that should be a priority, that the county is actively investing in efforts to communicate, keep us informed so that we can feel like we understand what's going on and trust what's going on. There's the two daughters. Transparency for me is really just about, we really should be able to trust what's happening and how it's happening. We may not, in fact, or it's unlikely that we would all agree on the outcome that's reached. Even in this room on one subject, we probably couldn't all agree on one thing. But if we can at least trust that there's integrity and openness and there's no game playing going on behind the scenes, then I think we can have a lot better chance of moving forward. With the redistricting, I tried to do a map, but it's just too hard to show on the screen like this what the new district lines look back. But this is a set of numbers that reflects, for District 1, what is the distribution of registered voters. So we actually got a pretty much bigger piece of Weaverville this last adjustment. And so I've already made some contacts in each of these areas. Well, not the military yet, but I'll work on that. But I really want to spend some time because I need to know how people feel about in other areas. Just like we care about very much what's going on here in Lewiston. There are people that care just as much about their communities, and I want to know where they stand as well. The last thing on the survey stuff, I also asked people to rank order. So I put these 8 things and said, put them in order from 1 is the most important to 8 is the least important, and then it assigned points based on that. So what it says is, number 1 by this survey was forest management. Close behind was issues related to cannabis, then water management, county services, getting more tourists, getting more jobs, county infrastructure, and then other, which was a whole range of things. But what I actually thought was most interesting was not necessarily which one came out on top, but how there was less of disparity than I thought there would be. I thought there would be a couple of things that were just off the charts and everything else would be a few things really low, but I think it speaks to people in the county have very differing opinions about what's most important, and overall they just see the room for improvement in a lot of these. So I thought that was an interesting takeaway, and I'm going to be sharing this with the Board of Supervisors and then speaking to it briefly in public comments on the next board meeting. Okay, Just so you know too, because some people couldn't make it tonight, they asked if we could record or live stream this. We don't have a strong enough signal here in this room to do the live stream, so I am recording it, but we're keeping it on me, so you don't have to worry. If you don't want to be on video, you aren't. But we did want to be able to share this for people that can't come out, whether it's health issues or anything else that might not make them able to be here. And of course, we'll do this again at other times before the election so that there's other chances. But with that, I would really like to shift from you having to just listen to me getting to listen to you. Any questions that